time management, just be an ongoing learning process for me.
Let's talk about what normal people talk about with time management. If I were
What do normal
when I
people
say
talk? Who are normal?
and I can only guess because there's very few normal people in my life.
This ought to be a good one.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your particular situation. This is the Emerging Artist Podcast. I'm joined here with Shiree Ingram from ShireeNichole.com, and I'm Scott Markowitz from ReinventionStudioLab.com. And today we're going to be talking about time management.
Oh boy. This should be a lot of fun because I think I stink at time management. Maybe that's why we need to talk about it. I do have a physical day planner, and I of course I'm a list maker, so I usually do my whole month. Usually the last week of the month I plan for my next month, and more detail on every day of things to accomplish and appointments and all of that. One of the things that as I've gotten older that I am trying to do is just not schedule jobs too close together, because in this industry, what happens when you start a project, if it's somebody that has never done faux painting before, or even if they have, you get started on their home, and oftentimes you'll come the next morning and they're seeing the progress on the phone and they really like it. And so then they think of other areas that they would like to do. And then, of course, since you're already there working on their home, they want to know if you can do that right then and there and just add it on to what you're already doing for them. And in times past, I never allotted for those extra work days. And so I would find myself working incredibly long hours. Sometimes at 8, 9, even 10 o'clock at night. Of course, the homeowners weren't there when I was working that late usually, but that makes it hard to, it kind of messes with my creativity too, because you get exhausted.
Yeah.
And so it's this whole subject of time management. Yeah, I think is maybe going to just be an ongoing learning process for me. How about you?
Shiree, yeah, this is a funny topic for me because I don't think that after 30 years in the business that I can manage time. I feel like time's not something that can be managed. There's an old saying in the broadcasting world, more art faster.
Oh.
People would pop into your editing room screaming, going, more art faster. Broadcast is a deadline-driven industry.
Right.
Time management is a tricky thing because you're always trying to balance how long do I think this is going to take me,
yes,
with the expectations of your client. So I think that the very first step in managing time is setting up reasonable expectations with your clients. But that can be tricky too, because sometimes they really do have a very calendar driven need for your product. For example, as part of my business, I do photography for real estate agents and for brokers. And so they have a real necessity to get their property listed by a certain amount of time. So that usually does restrict how much time I would have to get their photography turned around and processed for them. I look at it in a couple of different ways. In my business, I will look at a very particular project and say, okay, so this kind of project, I'm going to have to turn that around very quickly. But this project, I'm going to be able to take my time and really be much more careful and much more diligent about what it is that I'm delivering. And so when I schedule out things on my calendar, as best as I can, I try to allocate enough time for everything. But it's difficult with those things that are driven by a quick turnaround. So there are times where I have to work late into the evening in order to squeeze a photo session in for a realtor. But when they call me, I have to decide, is this realtor somebody that I really want to work well into the night for or not? And if it's a client that I've worked with a lot in the past, then the answer is almost always yes. Of course,
Sure.
I'm gonna help them out and make sure that I can deliver some great photos for them. But yeah, it's difficult when you're an artist to manage the time because there's so many variables at play. Like what in your case, like when is the homeowner going to be away so that you can work on their bedroom, or when are they going to be out of town so that they can let you maybe work extended hours on a project. And so there's so many more things you have to consider as an artist when you're trying to budget your time. I think the real question is, when you're in the actual process of doing the art, are there things that you can do to make the time more efficient?
Yes, I constantly say to myself, work smarter, not harder, because I have a tendency to take the tiniest brush I own and want to paint the whole wall with it. And so that's actually been something that my husband has the complete opposite take on stuff. Like, he wishes everything could be put in a paint sprayer and put on that way. And he likes things that are quick and it can be rolled quickly and that quick satisfaction. But faux painting is not usually that way. It can be very time consuming, very detail oriented. And so I do think about that. Like, what tools am I using? Or even the way I set up scaffolding, ladders. Is this the most efficient way for the setup to maximize, the amount of time? Will it lessen my time? So actually yesterday I was working on a entryway that has two beams in the ceiling, and I was wood graining those. And I could have just taken a 10-foot ladder, but I would have been up and down constantly moving that ladder around. Also, it would have changed a little bit in the finish because I'm stopping and starting, and so it would have been a lot of movement. It would actually have taken me more time if I would have used the ladder. So instead I set up what's called a baker scaffolding. And yes, that took time to set that up. It takes time to break it down, but I can set that up with the ladder and I can move the scaffolding while I'm up there. So just a lot more efficient. And so little things like that definitely help for the physical aspect to be able to manage time a little bit better.
Oh, I love that. There's a saying, arts and crafts. Those two words are often put together.
Yes.
And I think that the craft part is very important. We always think about the artistry and that personal touch that you put on things, but it's the craftsmanship, I think, that makes the efficiency happen. Like knowing, like you're just describing, setting up the scaffolding in a particular way so that you can quickly and easily adjust your position compared to where the wall is. That's part of the craft of what you do.
Yeah.
The artistry is like when you put the brush to the wall and apply the texture. That's the artistry. And I think that if we become much more efficient and much more knowledgeable about the craftsmanship that we're doing, that just helps give us a little bit extra time for the artistry too.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly for me, like when I go out and shoot, let's say I'm doing a headshot, knowing how my camera works without even having to think about it, that's the craftsmanship. Like I can pick up my camera without having to think about it. My fingers know exactly which dials and buttons to push and move and get ready to take a shot. So I literally can pick up my camera, and before it's even up to my eye so that I can see through the viewfinder, I've already dialed in the things that I need in order to get what I feel is going to be the right shot. And that's just being able to know your craft so well that you don't have to think about it. That, I think, becomes the key to time management and efficiency.
Along with that, on my end, being ready is weeks before I start the job. And I may have a couple jobs going on in the same week at the same time, bouncing to different places. But to have that person's file, I write a list of absolutely everything I need for that job, even down to, I know it's redundant, but even they're all the same. Each customer, I have the same thing. I need rags, I need my brushes, I need denatured alcohol. I write the same list for every single person, and not waiting until the morning of the job to start loading my truck, doing it the night before, having everything 100% ready. So that way I don't have to, oh, I forgot something and I have to stop on the way to the client's home or go to Lowe's or Home Depot or a paint store or whatever, that I've already taken care of those things. And that also helps create just a happier way to go to work, where you don't feel under pressure, you don't feel anxiety, you have everything. There's nothing worse than getting to the job and think you're going to get started and discover you have the paint, but you forgot a roller cover, you don't have a bucket to pour the paint in. Just things like that you need to think through. So if I think through every single step of the process, okay, what do I need? Okay, I need a drop cloth to get started, and then the ladder is going to go down, then I'm going to start masking, and so I need tape, and I'll just go through every single step of the process and make sure I have every single thing loaded in my vehicle before I get started. And I think that does help a lot with time management too. It's been a slow process, and I don't always do it right. There are sometimes I'm just too tired at night to load it all, but what will help is that list, even getting up earlier in the morning, like at 5 in the morning, making sure that I have enough time so that I'm on time for the client and load it then. And just having that list of that also relieves a lot of anxiety for me too.
Yeah. And it also helps in the moment when you're actually doing the work. Yeah. Like having a real understanding and just a deep memorization of what your process is so critical to being able to do things efficiently, and therefore having your time managed well. Beyond that, let's talk about what normal people talk about with time management. If I were
what do normal
when
people
I say
talk? Who are normal?
And I can only guess because there's very few normal people in my life, but
Same here.
My wife, for example, she's very detail oriented. My wife is a property manager, and she works here at the Naples airport in Naples, Florida. And so she is very detail oriented. She works by a very strict minute by minute schedule and itinerary.
Oh, wow.
And I could not do that.
Yeah.
That would make me literally want to just jump off a cliff. I like to have some flexibility in my schedule, and I like to be able to allow the moment to inform my next movement and the next thing that I do sometimes. So I will schedule just extra time into my schedule. So like when I'm looking at my calendar and a client calls me and they say, do you have 10 a.m. on Friday available? I'll look and I'll see, A, do I have 10 a.m. available? But B, do I have enough time leading into it and leading out of it to buffer into a different kind of task later on? What do you think about that? Do you think that it's important to schedule down to the minute, or do you think that it's important to be able to, as an artist, allow more time perhaps than like a normal schedule would account for?
For me, it definitely more time. I'm more like you in that I like a more flexible schedule. I don't do real well mentally and emotionally when I have a rigid schedule. I feel like I'm being choked. I feel like I have no control over my life and my own time. And sometimes that can come from clientele too. I have had a client that can be controlling, and I've known them for a very long time, and just pressuring me to get more done. And I'd already worked an incredibly long day. And the husband took me aside and he reminded me this is your business, right? You need to do what you need to do. And I often think about his words and I appreciate that. Yeah, this is my business and I need to take care of myself. And when I start feeling overwhelmed like that or being time choked like that, I'm not very creative. And I just want to leave the job if I feel like that. So yeah, I definitely do better with a more flexible schedule. And then there's just like you too, you have so many different things that you do. And so giving yourself time to prepare for a changing of a mindset from what each client needs. So if I'm physically working at a job and some wood graining, and that's all I'm thinking about is wood graining, but I know that later in the afternoon I'm meeting with a new client that I've never met before. So I have to have a complete different shift of mindset, prepare myself. So I do like to, typically I'll take off and I'll take a longer lunch and try to really think about, so when I'm on the phone with that client, initially I talk about, want to know what colors they like, what textures they like, what their style of design or decorating is, if they have any materials, pictures, things that they've seen that they want to show me. And so I really want to be 100% present when I'm with them and not having my mind be back on the wood graining job I was on earlier that day. But I personally need time to make that mind shift.
That is huge what you just tapped into there, is that if you're not present when you're doing a certain thing, then that's going to end up taking more time away from everything that you're doing. So yeah, that's such a key to efficiency, is just once you start to dedicate to a certain task, just making sure that you're 100% there. Because as an artist especially, you have to make sure that everything you've got is going into the product.
Yeah. And people, they need to know that you care about their home, that you're excited about the finish that you're going to be doing for them. And it's all encompassing. It isn't just the finish. It's also typically what else is going on in the home. A lot of times people are in the midst of a remodel, or they're in the midst of just changing fixtures out, window treatments and things like that. And so I often get involved in some of that, and just that they want my opinions on fabrics and tile and just furniture and different things. And so I love the whole process of it. And so I want to be immersed in that and have the time to do that. I had a situation actually last week where I'm working on a home here in Naples, and the designer came in, and I had been wood graining, and I got pulled off of it when she showed up, and then the homeowners were there, and we all needed to be together. And so I had 3 hours to be there before another appointment, and I wasn't going back to wood graining. I could see that I needed to be there on this meeting, and it was wonderful. And once I realized, you know what, this is part of my job too, is being involved in the whole creative process with the designer and the homeowners, and I'm not wood graining. I've shifted what I'm doing to just this consulting and being involved in this process and being fine with that, and it just shifting my mindset to be okay with that.
Yeah. It sounds like neither of us are experts in time management, but I think we are really both experts in being 100% present and being there for our clients. That's definitely the way that my business is built. It's 100% about how you show up for your client. And I know for you too, that you're there 100% for them to make sure that you're delivering that experience that they want. And you're even helping them, it sounds so well beyond the scope of what you've been hired for. You're describing helping them pick out fabric and tile. And that's just a function of just caring so much. about their project. And that's such a good thing to keep in mind always, to know that you're really there to enrich the other person's life in some way. It's not strictly transactional in terms of you pay me and I paint your wall. It's really about you invite me into your world and I enrich your experience. Mm-hmm. And that's so important to know. And I think that makes the time go by more efficiently as well, when you have that overarching mentality and mindset that you're there to make their world a little bit brighter. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, time management.
I think too, along that line about enriching your clients' lives. Years ago, I was listening to, I guess it would be like a podcast, but was on CDs back then. But the author of the book was talking about the importance of listening. And that goes along with being present and giving the gift of listening and without interrupting the person, and just how people react when you don't interrupt, with when you're looking at them and you're paying attention to what they're saying. And for me, try to just put out other things that are going on in my head, because I do feel I'm maybe like ADD or something. I have like all these thoughts, like squirrels running around, or what is it? My sister calls it monkeys swinging from limb to limb, monkey brain. But sometimes it takes effort on my part to just really pay attention, to knock out all those other thoughts and just be 100% present with the client. And that saves you time too, because when you truly listen to what your client has to say, listen to what their likes are, their dislikes, so you're not going to bring them samples that you know are the wrong color options for them. It's a waste of time. And so I think you could save both yourself and your client time, and also money too, just by really listening and paying attention to what their needs are.
Oh, that's good. Shiree, that's really good. Totally. If you're able to absorb all that through that process of intentional listening, then you're going to be so much ahead of the curve, because they're not going to have the language to describe exactly what it is that they're going to enjoy.
True.
They just, right. they don't know what they don't know about your world. So it's trying to get them to say things that will descriptively inform you how to do your job. Forget about it. It's just not going to happen. So you do have to develop that skill of deeply listening to hear those things underneath what they're saying that you can interpret as the artist into something that you can show them and reflect it back to them. So important. And that's a skill. That takes some time to develop that ability to interpret what people say and produce something that you can show them that reflects their personality, their beliefs, their values. Mm-hmm. So hard to do. And listening is definitely the most important skill to do that. And I love how you've just turned both of us into experts in time management. Because if we're able to do that, then we're able to more efficiently and more quickly deliver what they want and get that job done quicker. Congratulations to us. We're winning at time management.
just by being present and listening more. I think when I'm on a job, and a lot of it is, we've talked about developing relationships with people before, and that's a huge part of it. And I like when I just have the whole day at a client's home, and oftentimes they just want to visit and they want to talk. And sometimes I can continue to work. They're fine with that. Other times they'll just pull off of it and visit. And I've developed just wonderful friendships with people that some people I even consider like family I'm that close to. And so it's not just about the actual painting, like you said, enriching their home, but enriching their lives, and you develop a new friendship. And it's wonderful.
Oh, it is. I could not imagine doing anything else to make a living.
Yeah. So you're not going to be working with your wife at the airport, I take. And that's
No.
incredible to be able to stick to that more rigid schedule. I think that takes a very unique and special person to be able to do that.
Oh, I give Tina all the credit in the world. What she does on a daily basis, I find to be just astounding. She's able to, as a property manager, she sees so many details and she's able to take care of so many different things and delegate to her staff all the different things that need to be done. But for me in my world, I can devote that kind of attention to a video frame or that photography frame, but she does it for the entire world. Like she's looking out into an entire airport, acres and acres of space and every little detail in the buildings, and she can see something in the ceiling that's not right. And it's incredible. But it is a different kind of mindset and a different kind of skill set as well. Because the room in which I'm working in could be falling apart and I wouldn't care.
I think as an artist, I think you do have to be that way at times, very incredibly focused in that. For me, it's when I go on to a project that is under new construction or in a remodel, and there are so many people on the site. And I just have to, hopefully I can find a room I can work in where I can shut the door and be by myself. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And so there are many times I'm like, okay, let's just focus on this one wall. And sometimes let's just focus on this 2 foot by 3 foot space. Let's do that first and try to block out everything else around me that's going on, so that I don't get frustrated or feel overwhelmed by the noises, because in construction there's always somebody hammering something, vacuuming something, sawing something, and those aren't exactly peaceful sounds for creativity. But earbuds come in great use when you have those moments too. But when I was younger, I felt like I just always running 90 miles an hour all the time. Slowed down a lot since I've gotten older, and I want to. And my dad always used to say, you just need to have time to do absolutely nothing. And I love that. To be at home, to have absolutely no agenda of doing anything. And I did that on this last Sunday, and it was just really nice. And then I was excited to go back to work on Monday.
Yeah, having the ability to build in some time for yourself to just not worry about anything is very important. Yeah. You mentioned that you read the scriptures. That's a big part of, the scriptures, the day of Sabbath, right? You're supposed to give yourself at least that one day a week where you don't have to worry about your work, and you can devote that to leisure. And because playing is a big part of creativity. So if you have that one day where you're not working per se, then that opens up the possibility for your mind to play with new ideas, new thoughts. And that's really the spring that creativity flows through. And yeah, I love that. I have to be better about that. It's been a season since I've been able to not work 7 days a week, but that's certainly something that I know that the end of the season is coming near, where I will be able to build in some extra time for myself. But building a business is sometimes challenging to build that extra time into. So I guess to recap, time management is not something that the typical artist is good at, because because our minds are going all over the place all the time. Our minds are racing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And so the notion of trying to manage time, I think, is a foreign concept. But to recap, Shiree, let's go through it. You want to try to make sure that you allocate enough time for the tasks that you know you're going to have.
Right.
You want to make sure that you're going to be fully present when you are doing the tasks.
Yes.
And you want to make sure that you also build in some scheduled break time, right? What am I missing? Did I miss anything?
Being organized too helps with time management.
Knowing your craft and being organized. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think if you're able to do that, then it's not so important to make a list every day and follow it. At least that's what I'm taking away from, because I don't like to make lists, but I know you're a list maker.
I like to make lists, but then sometimes I look at it and it's very freeing to just shut the day planner and then don't even look at it for the rest of the day. And then I probably need a therapist's opinion on it too, but I do like to do something and after I've done it, write it down, then cross it off. There's probably some psychology behind that as well. But I think, I like definitely a more flexible routine. But each person has to find their own way in all of this in the time management.
If you would like some more coaching around time management, then you can definitely contact Shiree and see what her latest methodologies are, because they're constantly evolving, right? We're always learning.
All my challenges to time management.
If you're looking to explore the idea of having your own art-based business, then you should definitely contact Shiree. And the best way to do that would be to go to ShireeNichole.com, ShireeNichole.com, and just schedule some time to talk to Shiree.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
It would be great. Yeah, Shiree, any last words on time management?
I don't think so. I think we actually covered it way better than I thought we would, because I had 3 things written down on time management that I could think of, and thinking that I wasn't really a very good example to be talking about time management. So I think we've had a lot of, hopefully useful things to help other people.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Shiree, and we're wishing everybody a fantastic rest of their days. And to all you emerging artists out there, rock on.
Yes.
All right. Excellent.